Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Sports 2.0 show. I'm your host today, Akshay Kumbar. With me is Grant Mitchell, and calling it today is Will Reed. Grant, how you doing this weekend?
I'm doing great, man. It's been an awesome past couple of weeks of sports. We've got some really more good series coming up. So, as a total sports junkie, I'm just locked in from here on out.
Nice, good to hear. Will, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Some camera issues on my end. I'm not sure what happened, but had to make the show anyway. I'm calling in. Hopefully, we have a good show for us, and it will be a busy week in sports. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so first things first, we got to start with the NBA right now. It's really, taken over Twitter as of late. And we've got the conference finals going on. Already had game one yesterday in the West. The Suns took that game one over the Clippers. Got game one for the Eastern Conference. That's going to be on Wednesday, and game two is on Friday. And then games 2, 3, and 4 for the West will be played this week. Grant, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts about we'll start with the West. What are your thoughts on that conference?
Well, these Western Conference playoffs got off to an incredible start. And of course, we were missing two stars, maybe even the main stars for both teams, even though you would argue Devin Booker's probably better than Chris Paul. But it was super, super entertaining to watch. The Clippers really came out swinging, and to their credit, the Suns not only put up with it, they responded without their leader in Chris Paul. And Devin Booker had one of the more incredible games that we've seen from an individual performance. Obviously, we just saw Kevin Durant go for 49, 17, and 10. And then he had 48 points in game 7 as well. So it's a little overshadowed. But Devin Booker had 29 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists in the second half of that game. He was seen FaceTiming Chris Paul heading down the tunnel after they won the game. He said, how'd you like that? How'd you like my assist? You see, I had 11 of them. So he really stepped up for his team in a way they needed it. And Paul George, he's been putting up amazing numbers so far in these playoffs, but he only had 1 point in the fourth quarter, and it was on a free throw from a technical foul that probably shouldn't have been called in the first place. So at the end of the day, Devin Booker outshone Paul George, and that's the reason the Suns won.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Suns missing Chris Paul, but stepping up as a young team, that really helped them in game one. Well, what are your thoughts on going in for the Clippers and Suns going into game 2 and game 3 later this week?
Oh yeah, going into game 2 and game 3, the Suns are going to need more of the same from Devin Booker, especially if Chris Paul is not going to be playing. He's going to need to keep it up on the playmaking side of things. And as for the Clippers, they put on a great performance without Kawhi. Reggie Jackson stepped up in a big way. I look to him if I'm the Clippers to continue producing. They're going to need more offensive input from a lot of their other guys. Terrence Mann had that great game 6 versus the Jazz. Maybe look for him to step up. He kind of took a step back in game 1. Only had 9 points, but maybe we'll see more out of him in game 2. Maybe leading the Clippers to a victory.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of role players for both sides stepped up big in game 1, and they're definitely going to have to continue with Kawhi Leonard and Chris Paul being out indefinitely for this series. And switching on to the other side of the bracket in the East, the Hawks just won game 7 last night in Philadelphia. Ben Simmons had a horrendous performance as well as Doc Rivers. So the Hawks advancing in 7 games as a 5th seed. We'll go back with you. What do you expect in game 1 on Wednesday night?
I'll admit I was one of the sleepers on the Hawks. I did not expect them to get this far. They have a tough matchup coming up against the Milwaukee Bucks. Once again, I'll probably go into this series doubting the Hawks' ability to win any game or to just compete against the Bucks. The Bucks have a much more talented roster, in my opinion, and they have the better star in Giannis Antetokounmpo. But I mean, if Trae Young and John Collins and company can keep proving me wrong, it should be a great series.
Yeah. And Grant, Giannis just outplayed, didn't obviously outperform Kevin Durant, but, had 40 points in game 7, which is crazy. Put the team on his back late in that game. Does he have enough to, finally win a conference finals?
Well, you know what, Akshay? After game 5, when the Bucks just threw that game completely away, they never should have lost that game. In my head, I was already planning for them to lose the series so I could write the headline, "The Greek Fraud." But to his credit, he performed so well in games 6 and 7. He was much more aggressive. He was still settling for a couple of maybe unwanted long-range jumpers, but not nearly as many as he was taking before. He attacked the rim, and in that fourth or in the overtime, he posted up with Kevin Durant on him, recognized, hey, this guy has played pretty much every minute of the past 4 games. I'm going right through you, and he hit a move in the post on Kevin Durant, ultimately put them ahead, and the Nets could never respond. So I was very impressed with Giannis in that game. And like you mentioned, I definitely would say that he's the better player as far as him versus Trae Young heading into this next series. But one thing that we saw from Trae Young against the Philadelphia 76ers was that it doesn't matter how he's doing, how he's shooting the ball. He's going to find a way to impact the game. You know, he may have shot 39% on field goals for the series, but he had a game with 39 points. He had a game with 28 points. He had a game with 31 points, and he averaged 11 assists for the series. You know, he's listed at 6'1", but he's no more than 5'10". I don't think he's ever dunked a basketball before. I have dunked a basketball. I don't think he's as athletic as me. I'm not even going to lie. But he was out there balling all series, regardless of what, you know, his shooting stats may say. He was incredible. He was their leader. This is his first time in the playoffs. And I think that, you know, the Hawks are playing entirely with house money. They won 3 games on the road in the last series. They're going to have no fear going to Milwaukee for game 1.
Yeah, you know, speaking of going into no fear with Milwaukee, interesting stat that I found out the other day. Milwaukee is actually undefeated at home since the middle of April this year. I mean, that's including playoffs as well. That's a crazy amount. And, you know, the Hawks will be going into Milwaukee for game 1 and 2. You know, can anybody in the Hawks really, you know, contain Giannis as well as, you know, or as much as the Nets try to do, Grant?
Well, I think that there's a seriously interesting defensive matchup for the Hawks with the Bucks here, because you think, you know, you go like for like, you put Capella on Brook Lopez, but in actuality, Brook Lopez is a 7'2" guard. He just stands at the 3-point line, and that all he does is shoot. Every once in a while, he might go in and throw a hook in the post, but you can live with that. You know, obviously he plays big. He's one of the best at blocking shots on the defensive side of the ball. But on offense, I wouldn't be surprised if the Hawks put John Collins on him. Collins is a little more agile, has quicker feet than Clint Capella. And I think the Hawks are going to stick Capella on Giannis. We saw that, you know, Embiid was putting up monster numbers. But in those moments where it really counted, Capella was playing great defense, making it super hard on Embiid. And he was out-rebounding him. As great as Joel was, Clint Capella led the NBA in rebounds this season, just under 15 a game. And that proved super valuable in the fourth quarters of the last series. So, yeah, Giannis is probably going to have more blow-bys than Embiid because, you know, even though Embiid's mobile, he's still too big to be as fast as Giannis. But I think the Hawks' philosophy is very much going to be let Giannis get downhill. We'll give him anything from 15 feet and out, and then we're going to have Capella waiting under the rim for him. And, you know, if that's their strategy, I could see it working out pretty well for them, in all honesty.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think that Giannis, he's definitely a little bit more, you know, athletic, has a little more movement in his step than Joel Embiid. But, you know, Clint Capella still did a somewhat decent job guarding him. And I think that it'll make Giannis' life a little bit harder, you know, trying to score down low. Will, I have a question for you. You know, the Hawks, we've seen all throughout these playoffs, a lot of their role players stepping up. Just saw Kevin Huerter in Game 7 step up, and, you know, Danilo Gallinari in Game 5. Who do you think will make an impact? You know, not Trae Young or John Collins. Who do you think on the Hawks will make an impact starting off this series?
Yeah, Kevin Huerter stepped up big time. Game 7, he was thrusted into the starting lineup after for the second series after DeAndre Hunter was ruled out for the rest of the playoffs. But I'm going to look to Lou Will off the bench. Actually, he's had a few good games throughout the first 2 series, but he's a name that we haven't really heard too much from in these playoffs. And out of the players that you just named, if I had to go with someone else, I'd look to Lou Will to step up.
That's an interesting pick, nonetheless. He has, you know, a lot of veteran experience. Not a lot of veteran experience on that team, but Lou Will does provide a spark off the bench. So moving on into the Major League Baseball side of things, we've got some pretty big series this week. Start off with the biggest so far that I can name is the Los Angeles Dodgers against the San Diego Padres. It's a 3-game series. Right now, none of these teams are leading in their division, but it's still a very highly anticipated matchup. Two great teams here. Who do you think will end up victorious in the series?
Well, this one's a little interesting because today's game you got Yu Darvish on the mound for the Padres. They're going in as the favorites with Darvish on the mound, but the Dodgers have been playing decent baseball recently without Muncy in the lineup. He might return for game 2 or 3. Bellinger might return for game 2 or 3. They've had a lot of injuries down the Dodgers lineup, and they've been playing some decent baseball. So I'm not too sure who I'm going to go. I'll go with if Muncy and Bellinger do return for games 2 or 3, I think the Dodgers can pull away with this series. Padres had a few injuries on their end. Tatis Jr. is dealing with a shoulder injury. He might not play game 1, but most likely going to be back for game 2s and 3. I'll go with the Dodgers if they can have those guys return from injury.
Grant, what are your thoughts about this series?
Yeah, Will mentioned it. Yu Darvish on the mound right away. That's a showstopper. But you do have Julio Urias for the Dodgers. Battling him there, who's had an incredible season. Frankly, he's 9-2, only a 3.5 ERA. But when he's on the mound, the Dodgers tend to win. And more broadly, the Dodgers tend to win whenever they play. One of my co-hosts in the morning show, Parlay Power Hour, Tanner Kern, loves to say that the Dodgers are the only good team in baseball. Now, of course, I don't agree with that, but they are probably the best team in baseball. Even though I don't believe they have the best record overall. So I think this is a very interesting matchup. Will touched on the injuries. I think Tatis Jr., his injury is more of a loss for the Padres than the others, Bellinger and the like, for the Dodgers. So because of that, I'm going to take the Dodgers in this series. But it is in San Diego, and if Tatis Jr. comes back, he might not be able to pick up a ground ball, but he can hit it 500 yards. So if he comes back, the Padres definitely have a chance, but I would lean towards the Dodgers.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you guys here. I am going to go with the Dodgers. I think right now, in my opinion, they've been the best baseball team for the past 3 or 4 years. They understand, how to play baseball at an exceptional, rate. They don't really have many, cold streaks throughout the season, and they've got, 3 great starting pitchers in Julio Urias, Clayton Kershaw, and Trevor Bauer that are all going to be in this rotation for this series. So I think it will be close, but I do think that the Dodgers will end up winning this series. Moving on into the American League, we have the first place Red Sox going up against the Tampa Bay Rays. That's a division matchup in the AL East. Grant, we'll go with you. The Rays are a half game back in the AL East right now. Do you think that they'll make up some ground with this series?
Well, I absolutely think they're making up ground in game 1. You've got Andrew Kittredge on the mound, 5-1 this season with a 1.3 ERA. It's going to be Rodriguez for the Sox. He's 5-4, 6.2 ERA. So just by virtue of that pitching matchup alone, you got to take the Rays here. They are also the more dangerous, I think, hitting team, even though the Red Sox obviously are no slouch. I think the Rays are capable of heating up more than the Red Sox are. And, of course, the big news down in Tampa Bay, Wander Franco up to the major leagues. What goes on with him? Does he start immediately? Is he just there to grow and see how things are done for the rest of the season? That's the one thing I'm excited to see more than anything. The number one prospect in that organization up at the major league level, I've got my eyes on him more than anything else.
Yeah, Will, what are your thoughts on the series? Do you have any specific things you want to see from either team?
No, Grant hit it right on the head. It's Wander Franco time down in Tampa Bay. Obviously, they've still got a pretty solid team there, but bringing up one of the best prospects in baseball is pretty exciting. I don't know when we see his first start. Maybe it's tomorrow's game that Grant just mentioned, but I'm pretty excited to see Wander.
Yeah, and looking ahead, even just past this week, obviously these two teams are the best in the AL East. Everybody else kind of really just sucks. I want to ask you guys, who do you think will, end up on top in this division? Do you have the Red Sox or the Rays? Grant, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but I think the Rays are the better team. Even though the Red Sox might be ahead by a half game, I believe it is. Yeah, a half game. Um, I think the Rays, like I said, I think their ceiling is higher, and I think they both have similar floors. So if they both play under their potential, then maybe things stay how it is. Maybe the Red Sox stay a half game ahead. But I like what the Rays have the possibility to do. And, I mentioned it before, Wander Franco, man. I don't know if anyone out there has gotten to see what he's been doing in the minor leagues. He is incredible. So hopefully, for the Rays organization, it translates to the major leagues. But if it does, we're already looking at a near all-star.
Will, what are your thoughts about, the rest of the season for these two teams?
I'm going to back up the Red Sox. I think they've got the more well, Grant says he likes the offensive lineup of the Rays better, but I like the firepower that comes from the Red Sox side. They got J.D. Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, all having incredible seasons on their own parts for the Red Sox. Pitching for the Red Sox has been shaky at times, but I'm going to go with the Red Sox just because of those three players I named.
One thing I will say that concerns me about the Rays, obviously going against what I just said, they just lost 5 in a row or 6 in a row, 2 to the White Sox and 4 to the Mariners. They are somewhat falling apart at a bad time. I'm not sure if that's, the entire reason they decided to make the change and call up Wander, or, maybe it was just his time and how he's progressed through the system. I think that it could be, whether he plays or not, sort of a jolt to the team, like, hey, we need to wake up and get rolling again. But yeah, like Will said, the Red Sox have been a little inconsistent. We know that the Lightning are great, or the Lightning. Geez, I'm mixing up my Tampa Bay teams here. We know that the Rays are great on the mound, but I do think, like I said, if they get their hitting sorted out, I think their ceiling is higher.
Yeah, you brought up Lightning. Let's go ahead and move on to the NHL. You got the conference semis going on right now. Both series tied up 2-2. Vegas Golden Knights just picked up that win to tie up the series last night. We have the Lightning and Islanders in Game 5 today. Will, what are your thoughts about? We'll start with the East. What are your thoughts on that series?
Well, I've been a big fan of the Lightning this whole season. I think they're the best team. As Grant, I say this to our co-host in the morning with Grant. Grant likes the Dodgers and the MLB as the best team in baseball, undoubtedly. I like the Lightning as the best team in hockey. They've just got all the firepower in the world. Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos. They've got Vasilevsky and net. I just think they're the best team, and the Islanders are going to have to be the ones to stop them, because whoever comes out of the West won't be able to compete with them. But the Islanders, they have the defensive mindset from Barry Trotz to stop the Lightning. They pulled up a big win in Game 4 from Nassau Coliseum. They jumped out to a 3-0 lead. The Lightning tried to make it a game, got 2 goals back late, but it ended in a 3-2 win for the Islanders. I think the Lightning come out fast in tonight's game, win by more than 2 goals, and take this one 3-2 back to Nassau Coliseum.
Grant, do you have any objections there, or do you agree with that?
I'm going to agree that the Lightning are the best team in hockey, but I don't necessarily know that it's going to be a convincing win, as Will is saying, or at least, less close than it has been so far. Scores for the past few games, 4-2, 2-1, 3-2. That's anything. That's far from dominance by either one of these teams. I think this comes right down to the stretch in the third period. I haven't looked at the odds for this game, but, I could see it being 3 goals total in this one. Will was going over some of the players in this series. I think the defensive lineups are just so strong. I believe the Lightning were in the top 3 in fewest goals allowed this season. So I do think it's going to come down to right to the end for this one.
Yeah. And moving on into the other conference, Will mentioned that none of these teams will actually, either stand a chance against the Lightning. But, Grant, who do you have actually winning the West Series? Do you have the Knights or do you have the Avalanche?
Canadiens.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just made the mistake with the Tampa Bay teams. Obviously, The Knights played the Avalanche in the past round. No judgment passed here. I wish I could stall this one out, because this one has been an entertaining series. The Golden Knights went down 2-0 in the past round, I believe. Or not the Canadians, I believe, went down 2-0 in the past series and won 4 straight, if I'm not mistaken. Golden Knights won 4 straight versus the Avalanche. I think this is another great matchup. I think this round, as well as the next round, the finals, is just going to be incredible action out on the ice. I think that, I'm going to take a very PC answer here, but I think that all the spectators are winning with these because they have turned in some really quality performances. But this is the swing game. The series is tied 2-2. You got the primetime slot at 9:00. I'm going to go with the Golden Knights. I just like the team that they've not only been this season, but in the seasons past. And I think they pull it out.
Will, what are your thoughts? Do you have the Canadians or the Golden Knights winning this?
Throughout this whole NHL season, I've been an avid hater of the Canadian teams in the NHL. The North Division was the worst division in hockey by far. Many people saw the Toronto Maple Leafs coming out of it, but that was until the Canadians beat them in 7 games in round 1. And Toronto had another meltdown, which will continue to add on to their lack of playoff success. But then the Canadians went on to actually, I'll correct Grant here, the Canadians swept the Winnipeg Jets in this second round. They did a great job against the Jets. They did shut them down. But, the Canadians have just been on a roll at least lately. They lost game 4 in the semifinals to the Knights. Robin Lehner stepped in, took over the job in goal for Vegas after Marc-Andre Fleury had his little gaffes in game 3. This is a tough decision for me because I told you guys I was a hater of the Canadians, but they've just been having this magical run that I can't really deny anymore. I'll go with the Canadians just to spice it up a little bit. They've got the more interesting team. The Knights are better on paper, but I can't deny what the Canadians have been able to do this series.
Yeah, you're right, Will. I had it right the first time and fixed myself for no reason. I had the game 6 in the sweep backwards.
So with all of those things being said, I want to just look ahead into the Stanley Cup Finals. Obviously, Will, you think that the Lightning, if they do advance, will win. Who do you think? What do you think your potential finals matchup will be, and how many games that'll go?
Judging off my last pick with the Canadians coming out of this series, I see a Lightning Canadians Stanley Cup Finals, and if that's the case, Carey Price is going to have to step up big time against the offensive firepower for the Lightning, and I'm not sure how well he can stand up against that for a whole 7-game series. I like the Lightning in 6 if that were to be the case. If the Knights advance, I think the Knights might actually have a better chance against the Lightning, might take it to 7. But either way, the Lightning would come out as victors no matter who comes out of the West.
Grant, you agree with that? Or
yeah, I was just gonna say I think Will hit the nail on the head there. Even though I think the Golden Knights will win that series, I also agree that the Golden Knights would give the Lightning a more of a run for their money. But I think the Lightning are too strong. It's funny looking back, seeing that they were 3rd in the Central Division. But I just think they're great. I think they're on their way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and at this point, I think it's theirs to lose more than anything else.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think, obviously they didn't have their best regular season, but they've performed well in the playoffs. They've been, not, setting the world on fire, but getting the job done, playing great defense, scoring goals when they need to. I do think that they will, unfortunately beat the Islanders. I am from Long Island, so I guess I have to support the Islanders. But I do have the Lightning winning. And then, obviously, as Will said, I don't think any of those West teams can, really stand a chance against the Lightning. But, like you guys said, I do think that the Golden Knights have a better chance, but, obviously not a great chance.
Hey, Will, Will, I have a question for you. Since obviously you think the Lightning are the best team, who would you say is the second best team in hockey right now?
Out of these 4 squads or overall?
I assumed it would be one of the 4, but whoever you think out of the whole league.
I would like to say the Avalanche. If it wasn't if it was for the whole league, choked against the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights ran off 4 straight victories, as you mentioned earlier, Grant. But I think they still have the best squad. But out of these 4 teams, the Golden Knights are probably the second best team. I only bet on the Canadiens to win this series simply because they've had more of a magical run and they seem more destined to make it to the finals. And if they do make it to the finals, they'd be the first Canadian team in the finals since 2011. But I like the Knights out of the other 4 teams.
Grant, what about you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I agree with Will here. I think the Knights are the second best. I was just wondering because we know that he loves the Lightning, so I just wanted to see what his thoughts were on the other teams out there.
I hate the Lightning, but they're the best. I can't deny that they're the best team.
So it's a love-hate relationship for Will and the Lightning here. All right, guys. Do you have any other, last-minute things you want to bring up about, what's going on this week in sports?
Will, you got anything?
No, I'm just looking forward. I'm a big hockey fan, so these semifinals are going to be really big. 2-2 series ties in both of them. It's going to be a great end to both of these series. We got the conference finals kicking off in the NBA. Nothing gets better than NBA and NHL playoff action at the same time. And we got some big-time series in the MLB. It should be a great week.
Akshay, you know what I'm looking forward to? I'm looking forward to seeing a point guard shoot more than 33% on his free throws.
I also am looking forward to that. That point guard also getting about 15 free throws a game. But they're fixing that rule, so hopefully we can see less of that in actual basketball. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to today's Sports 2.0 show. I'm Akshay Kumbar, and joined with me is Grant Mitchell and Will Reed. Thank you guys for tuning in, and have a great week.